Okay, chapter 10. I think a lot of you may be interested in this. This is HR. So let's talk a little bit about HR as it relates to retail, human resource management. Some of the things that we need to consider when we're in HR are obviously we want to think about how difficult it is to attract and to grow or develop the employees that we have. We also want to think about things along the lines of the people that we hire are going to be reflective. Are they going to be reflective of the image that we want to project as a retailer? And then there's also a legal and ethical environment that we operate in that we want to be able to fit in with without causing any problems or difficulties. So let's talk a little bit about HR. HR has its own mission statement, usually its own strategy it's pursuing, the objectives that they have in line, and certain tactics, ways that they're going to go about trying to meet their objectives. Um, some of the planning is, we want to look at what jobs are there and how do we design these jobs, how do we recruit and how do we select, how do we train, how do we develop, how do we manage performance, how do we rate them, how do we compensate them, and what kind of benefits are we going to negotiate for them, and how do we maintain the good relationship with our laborers. These would all be aspects of human resources. So you got a lot of hats, you got a lot of balls up in the air. It's an interesting job. It's not always executed very well, but that's largely because of the complexity. Human beings are not easy always to deal with. So let's talk a little bit about the information systems that can help us. Again, this is a way of us being able to electronically and systematically get the information, analyze it, store it, use it for things that have to do with personnel management. Um, Planning. So in this textbook, as in most business, we're going to be talking about long-term and short-term. So long-term is a year or longer, short-term is less than a year. And in terms of HR, we really want to keep our eyes on the long term, but it's so easy to get busy with the short term that we lose sight of that. One of the things that you need to be aware of also when it comes to especially retail is planning for the month or planning for the season. We're going to have a large number quite often of part-time employees, and we're going to be stacking them up during the busy times and then not needing them in the less busy times. So we've got to plan around that as well. That adds another complexity. When we talk about task development, we look at what needs to be done by people working for our employer, determine if there's other members in these different distribution channels that can maybe could outsource it in a way to others. We want to also look at the things that we have to have internal and see who's there and ready to be able to do that and not who we hire to do that. So get a task list, turn those tasks into positions, and then develop some kind of performance, what's good and what's bad for performance for this particular position. The textbook goes through the different kinds of organizational charts. And this would be something that would be for a small clothing store. So usually you have the boss up at the top, the owner, and then you'll have the lines would connect them with who does what underneath that person, and it would go on, flow on down from there. The four types of organizational charts that we could talk about: functional, regional, divisional, and product or brand. In this case, this would be an example of a functional chart. And if you look at the way things are broken down under the president, it's broken down by functions: the manufacturing function, the marketing function, the finance function, the human resources function, and even below marketing, you'll see those are also broken down in functional categories. Okay, so that would be an example of a functional organizational chart. Regional would have to do with places. So it might be, in this case, this is an international one. So we've got Asia Pacific, United States, Mexico. And then under that, we still have different regions within the US: West Coast, mid-region, East Coast. Let's talk a little bit about the hiring process. We want to find an employee or employees that would be good fits. We don't want to hire them and then have them quit or have to fire them very shortly thereafter. Effective recruitment: if I don't have a lot of turnover, it's going to save me time and money. It's expensive to get people because you bring them in, you got to train them, and they got there's that experience curve that they've got to kind of get up, and it takes time. And if I don't have good people and I have to constantly be retraining people, it's going to be a problem for them. It's going to be very expensive. So first of all, how many do I need that would be attracted to this kind of position? I want to be really clear about what kind of people I want to have, what kind of potential employees I'm desiring. I want to really only deal with those that are going to think about accepting a job offer. So if I'm lowballing it, I'm not going to be trying to spend a lot of time spinning my wheels with high-paid people. And I want to follow company practices and policies as an HR person, so that I'm making sure I'm recruiting correctly. I might want to be using testing in this process. I might want to be screening. I'll use maybe an online system or some other system where we're able to pick up, what's out there in these resumes that are coming in, and just look at the ones that are the most promising. I want to check their references and do background checks. Have them do drug testing and things like that. And I also want to conduct and sit down and do an interview with them. Where do I find applicants? It might be newspapers, online or otherwise. It might be some kind of trade association. It might be just come in unsolicited. It might be a referral. A lot of companies ask their people, they'll actually pay their people to recommend employees. Private employment agencies, I might pay them to go out, headhunters they call them, to go out and look for people for me. I might be going into colleges and universities. So, we here at Ohio Dominican, we have sometimes companies come in and they'll set up a little booth or something like that, and they're looking for salespeople for life insurance, or they're looking for people that want to be nurses, or school teachers, or whatever it is that they're looking for. That's what they're going out to recruit. That might be something that's completely done online. And there's a good example of that. Monster.com. Training and development. So once they're in, I want them to learn about the company, learn about the rules in our industry and our company, and learn about their duties as it relates to their job. And I might want to also be doing it for whole areas. So maybe we'll have like a customer relations, anybody that has customer relations focus, I might have them in and we train them on how to do a better job. And it might be interactive. It might be sales training. We may take that off site. It might be inventory control. How do we do this better? Point of sales. This is how you use the terminal, etc. These would be examples of training and development. I could be doing it on the job. I could be doing it off the job, on-site, off-site. Send people out. A lot of the time, like IT, you'll be sent out maybe the other side of the country to attend some classes in a particular programming language or something like that. On-the-job training might be, I sit down with my boss or with a coworker that's a specialized or maybe a little more knowledgeable in a particular area than I am, and they would be training me. I can do it individually. I can do it programmed. We got this, very structured. I can do it as a group. I can do it with a mentor-mentee kind of approach. Management. I want to supervise and I want to evaluate employee performance, and it's going to be both formal and informal. So at least once a year, I'm going to be having something in writing, and they're going to, countersign that they accept it, and that's the way it is. But it also might be informal, where I'm walking around and I talk to them as their boss. Performance appraisals, when we do that, especially the formal ones, it should be fair. It should, everybody should have the same. Systematic. It should be done at the same time. And it should have some kind of quantifiable, numbers attached to it. Makes sense. So, it's clear to everybody what's going on. How do we motivate people? There's different kinds of motivations. There's intrinsic, so what's inside of me motivates me. I really believe in this company, and I want it to be successful. It could be extrinsic, though. It could be something where extrinsic would be, I'm going to get that bonus if I do this. So at the end of the year, I'm going to get that bonus. So that's something outside of me. Yes, I'm all about that bonus. Types of compensation. So I can have monetary or non-monetary, and I can have things like the hourly wage, straight commission. So I sell something and I get commission for it. I might get a base salary plus commission for what I sell. I might get a salary plus a bonus if I really do a good job, save the company money or something like that. It might be fringe benefits. It might be like in New York, it was huge. Parking was enormous fringe benefit. Or it might be membership to a golf club. It might be membership to a health club, whatever. These would be other ways of being compensated. Employee turnover is not a good thing. So if you have high employee turnover, that's almost always a warning sign of something. You could have involuntary employee turnover for just people not doing their job and having to fire them. It could be because the company as a whole, though, however, is doing poorly. That's because it then downsizing the company. Voluntary is, on the other hand, could be things like retirement. That's a good thing. Change a career, somebody wants to move into something else. Personal reasons, they want to stay home and have kids. They may just be unhappy with the place they're working. And you want to find out what those things are. So what you want to do is have exit interviews when people leave. Find out why it is they're leaving. Okay? Except for retirement, you probably got that one figured out. Diversity, the chapter does talk about diversity and differences among people is a definition of diversity. And it talks about things like not limited to, but including how old people are, their gender, ethnicity, race, their ability. So these would be examples of diversity. There are equal employment opportunity laws that prohibit the discrimination on basis of color, race, sex, religion, national origin, age, or physical disability. There's also something called affirmative action, which is where it's looked at that there's been some kind of systematic disadvantage to individuals on some kind of group identity in the past, and it's going to be made up for in the present. There's a business case for diversity, and this is it. The company will be more profitable if it has a workforce that mirrors the demographics of its environment. That's the theory. And so a lot of firms say, yes, that's right. That's the direction we want to go. And we want to create an environment that will allow us to use that diversity.